all lies. You know, big lie about the January 6th being a false flag operation, a big lie about COVID being a false flag operation, a big lie about the Ukrainians being Nazis, a big lie. I mean, it just goes on and on. Just listen to this. This is incredible.
If I was the deep state and I wanted to destroy America, I would rig the election with a puppet candidate.
That's Joe Biden they're talking about there, right?
One that was so compromised that they would never say a word about it. I would create a false flag that allows for mail-in ballots.
Right, the false flag being the COVID emergency.
I would be in charge of the ballot counting machines. I would create a false flag to blame all who question the results of the election.
That would be the video that they're showing of that is of the Capitol riot on January 6th.
If I was the deep state, I would prosecute anyone that went against me.
Right, this is now Jack Smith, right?
I would sue and prosecute anyone that spoke up about the fraudulent election.
Yeah.
I would use my powers to shut down all your internet businesses and bankrupt you.
Yeah, this is you know, people who are selling ivermectin online and stuff like that.
If I was the deep state, I would make everyone an example why you should never question a Democrat ever winning an election. I would imprison my foes.
Yeah, this is a picture of Donald Trump as he's being arraigned in New York State for business fraud.
I would use my corrupt DAs and blackmailed judges to destroy you.
This is and then there was a picture of Alvin Bragg and Fonnie Willis and Jack Smith.
I would make sure all crimes I ever committed never happened. I would prosecute my biggest competition. I would make sure they could never run for office ever again.
All right, then that's a picture of Trump indicted, right?
If I was the deep state, I would convince everyone that Ukraine Nazis were good and women are men.
Right. You know, attacking trans people and saying that Ukraine is full of Nazis, right?
If I was the deep state, I would own every politician that mattered. If I was the deep state, I would push my pedophilia ambitions on you. If I was the deep state, you'd question your sexual identity, but not the medical establishment.
There's a picture of Anthony Fauci, and they had just shown some drag queens a moment before when they were talking about pedophilia, which is, you know, again, just, you know, one of the sickest lies out there.
If I was the deep state, you would fear to ever resist me. If I was the deep state, you would wish I was really the devil. If I was the deep state, I would say mission accomplished.
And then it goes to, you know, the logo, and it says Trump, Make America Great Again 2024. I mean, this is friggin' nuts. But this is, you know, a classic big lie. It's actually a sequential big lie. This is a classic big lie strategy. As, like I said, you know, as Hitler's propagandists did with his invasion of Poland and with his attacks on Jews. These guys are pushing nakedly fascist policies, tropes, and memes. And frankly, I think that where this started in a big way, I mean, you know, we had some big lies back in the day, right? Nixon's war on drugs was actually, as John Ehrlichman told Dan Bloom, the reporter, was actually an attempt to go after the anti-war hippies and black people. He said they are our enemies, but you can't outlaw that, so we criminalized drugs. And then we could, disrupt their communities. That was pretty much a verbatim quote from Ehrlichman. And, you know, we've had, and then, you know, George Herbert Walker Bush and the Willie Horton ad was arguably a big lie. But now, but then George W. Bush, and this is where I think this started. I think this is when the Republican Party, well, again, you could argue that the trickle-down economics was a big lie too. You know, Reaganism, and that if we ship our jobs to China, it'll increase prosperity. That was a big lie. But those were like smaller versions of big lies, and maybe just arguably bad economics. But in 2001 and 2002, George W. Bush and Dick Cheney lied us into 2 illegal wars that led to the death of thousands of Americans and millions of Iraqis and Afghan citizens. And they never suffered any consequence for those big lies. Both of these guys are still walking around loose. They're both still highly regarded in the Republican Party. They're both still multi-millionaires, 100 millionaires, you know, richer than you'll ever imagine being. And so I think the GOP looked at that and said, hey, you know, if Bush and Cheney can get away with this, we can get away with this. Excuse me. And this is what's happening right now. We're seeing the shape of this. I mean, Lee Atwater on his deathbed said, and I quote, "In 1988, fighting Dukakis, I said I would strip the bark off that little bastard and make Willie Horton his running mate." He said, "I'm sorry for both statements. The first for its naked cruelty, the second because it makes me sound racist, which I am not. Mostly I'm sorry for the way I thought of other people. Like a good general, I treated everyone who wasn't with me as against me." And I mean, you know, this is Atwater's strategies continuing, but being amped up, I mean, hugely. And the frightening thing, the sad thing, the frankly for America, the potentially disastrous thing is, you know, as we saw in Hitler's Germany, the big lie over the short term works. It's very, very hard to challenge a big lie, a simple black and white lie that is told over and over and over, repeated over and over and over again until literally millions of Americans believe it. More than half of Republicans right now believe January 6th was not a big deal. More than half of Republicans right now believe the election was stolen from Donald Trump. You know, more than half of Republicans right now are skeptical about the COVID vaccine, you know, which is going to lead to more and more deaths in the United States, where, you know, we just found out again last week, another report last week, that, you know, in Republican counties, you saw twice as many deaths from COVID as in Democratic counties all across the United States. A big lie. A big lie, by the way, that, you know, Ron DeSantis is still promulgating. I mean, Elon Musk, for God's sake, on X now it's called, talking about LeBron James's son collapsing from, apparently he's got a heart arrhythmia. And he says, oh, you know, was this the vaccine? No. But, you know, come on. And it actually had, for a while, it had a, you know, we're not sure this is true. Now it's like, you know, Elon presenting it as fact. These big lies are really, really destructive. And I don't have any easy answer about how to challenge them. The Germans didn't know how to challenge them. The German, you know, opposition political